Alright guys, so next we have let's talk about the cavalry units. So I'm just going to kind of separate them out here a little bit. So we got our light cav here, we got a cavalier, which is a knight line. It's just an upgraded knight. Here's the original knight. It looks like we're actually missing the paladin, which is in here somewhere. Right here is the paladin. Here's our elite battle elephant, our battle elephant. Here's our hussar, which is an upgraded cavalry unit, and here are all of our 3 camels. So we'll talk about the trash unit. So if you guys remember, the trash units are the units that don't cost any gold. Alright, so look here at the tech tree here, and so our light cavalry do not cost gold, they only cost food. And it says, fast cavalry for scouting and raiding, resistant to conversion, strong versus monks, weak versus pikemen, and camel riders. So yeah, like we talked about earlier, pikemen do bonus damage versus them. And then we also talked about how they do bonus damage versus the monks. They're actually faster than all of the other cavalry units. So this is going to be your fastest cavalry unit that you can use. But again, it's not strong against the other cavalry units. It'll die pretty easily. This unit is strictly basically used for, like in the early game, you'll use the scout cavalry for what's considered a scout rush. In the middle game, you really won't see these units very much. It's kind of rare to see them in the middle game, but occasionally you might see them. These units really kind of shine in the late game when you have like a pretty big economy, but you don't have enough gold economy to make all gold units. And so what you do is you make this unit as kind of like what I referred to before as a buffer unit, where it's just used to tank damage. The other thing that this unit can be used for is raiding. So again, this unit's quite quick, and it can kill villagers relatively quickly when they're upgraded later on. And so like sending in this unit to like kill villagers in the late game is actually something you see quite often. So yeah, the other thing this unit's good for is it does quite good against when you get a lot of these units, they can do okay against some ranged units, because it's hard to micro when you have like 30 of these things. It's hard to micro range units against like 30 cavalry units. So if you mass a lot of them, they can be quite good, but against like the stronger range units, they still die quite quickly. But against like skirmishers, they do really well. Again, they don't do so good against pikemen. Skirmishers are this unit here, just in case you guys don't know. What else? I think they do good at, like, decent against sniping siege. I don't think they get any attack bonuses there. I'll just check really quick just to make sure. So let's see here. Scout cavalry. Yeah, they just have an attack bonus versus monks. Let's see. Versus monks. Yeah, so they just do attack bonus damage versus monks. Alright, next up we have the knight line. So we have a knight here and a cavalier. And then the last one, which isn't included on the blue side here, is the paladin, which is this one here. This is the strongest of them all. This is basically for like a knight civ. This is going to be your primary unit that you're going to make. They're really, they're really strong. They have quite a lot of armor. They do good damage, and they're mobile. So those kind of characteristics combined really make for a pretty strong unit. They do pretty well against infantry units, with the exception of pikemen. They don't trade super well against these ones because they have these pikemen and halberdier have such a strong attack bonus versus these units. Gosh, these horses though. Let's see. They do pretty well against range units though, although it depends on the situation. If you have a lot of cavalry units and they don't have enough range units, what you can do is you can use your mobility to your advantage to kind of like circle the range units and then kill them later on. So yeah. But yeah, they do good against like infantry. They do all right against eagles. It's pretty even in like the middle game, like knights against eagles. But in the late game, paladins are better than eagles. So yeah. Let's see what else. Camels. So camels do bonus damage versus cavalry. So camels will do bonus damage versus all these 3 units here. Camels are good when you have a camel civ and the other person that's a knight civ, and you want to have a little advantage because camels are faster than knights. And so if the enemy comes to raid your base, you can chase them back to their base with camels and get some good hits off on them. So camels are a good unit to, to counter the enemy if they're going for cavalry units. You also can notice that a lot of these units are cavalry units. A lot of unique units are cavalry units, and camels will probably do quite well against those units as well. So yeah, so camels do bonus damage versus cavalry units, and yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Against elephants, I think that they do better. Like if you have enough camels, I think they do quite good against elephants, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, that kind of leads us into our last thing. Also, I guess one other thing is that camels don't do so great against infantry. Like the infantry, I think, do like decent against camels. Camels are weaker than cavalry, so they don't do as good against like eagles or infantry, and they also do really bad against archers. So if you're going against archers, stick to either elephants or probably knights or cavaliers or whatever. Only the camels are really only useful when you're going against cavalry. So if you're not going against cavalry, don't make camels really. There's only one exception to that, and that's if you're Indians. Indians can't make knights, so yeah. There's a lot of, if you guys are new to the game, there's a lot of like nuance, like little small things that it'll just take time to learn. Hopefully these general tips just kind of help you out here. All right, next up is the elephants, and the elephants they're kind of slower units, but they do more damage. You can see they do 14 compared to 12 here. And the other bonus they have is they do blast damage. So if I'm attacking one of these units here, right, and it's like right up against me, right, all the units that are surrounding this elephant also take damage, with the exception of the units that are obviously on my side. It doesn't do team damage, but yeah, it does blast damage, right? And that's what makes the elephants like quite strong versus infantry, with the exception of pikemen. Pikemen still do quite good damage versus the elephants, but like champions and eagles do very bad against elephants because the splash damage just does so much damage against them. Even knights, I think, even knights don't do so great against elephants when there's enough elephants around. I think the elephants still trade pretty well. Elephants can be kited by the archers, like arbalists, but it does take a lot of hits. Like you can see the elephants, this elite elephant here, it's not a fully upgraded elephant, but it has 300 hit points. Compared to like a knight that has like 100 hit points, it takes quite a lot of shots from archers to bring these things down. So I'd say the best counter against elephants is monks, because monks, they're quite slow in their melee, and so monks can convert elephants quite easily. So if you see elephants, the first thing I would do to react to them is probably make monks. Because yeah, monks trade quite well, but other than that, yeah, elephants, they do bad against pikemen and maybe against camels, but against most of the other units, I think they do quite well. Again, there's all these exceptions, especially when you get into these unique units that are civ dependent, right? Some of them actually do quite well against some of these units, but it's not. We'll get into those here at the end. So I think that covers most of the I think that covers the cavalry units pretty well. Yeah. So let's get into the range units, and yeah. So for the range units, let's first talk about our archer line. So I actually don't have the arbalist here. I'll find it here in a second. So this is the archer line. You have archer here, which is the Dark Age or Feudal Age unit. Then you have crossbow, which is Castle Age. And then the last one, which is the Imperial Age version, is the Arbalist, and that is right here. Here's the Arbalist. So archer units do good against, again, going back through the other ones, they do good against infantry when you can micro. They don't do so good against eagles usually. They do good against pikemen. They have a bonus attack versus pikemen. They do okay against cavalier if you can mass a lot of them. They do okay against all three of these. If you can get mass, you can do okay against any cavalry with Arbalist. But the thing is, if they get mass, and they have the mobility advantage, so they'll win. But yeah, Arbalists are it's all about hit and running with Arbalists in archers in general. The other thing that should be noted is that the archers don't do as good against the unit here, which is the trash unit. Again, trash meaning no gold. This is a skirmisher. You can see the skirmisher actually has extra pierce armor, which prevents the archer from doing very much damage at all. And later in later guides, we'll talk about just how big of an advantage that is, or like how good that makes the skirmisher versus the archer. But yes, the archer doesn't do very much damage versus the skirmisher. But yeah, the archer does it can do good against cav archers. The one thing here you'll notice is that the cav archers only do 4 range, whereas like a crossbow does 5. And so the crossbows can actually kite cav archers. The downside is that crossbows only have I'm Vietnamese here, so you get bonus HP, but the crossbow don't have as much HP as the cav archer, and they're not mobile, so that's an advantage there for the cav archer. But they do good against like hand cannoneers and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, the crossbow is if your civ gets Arbalest, then usually you go for crossbows in the early, mid, late game, just because Arbalest is a pretty strong unit. And it's also like really easy on your economy because it doesn't cost food, which is something I'll get into in later videos. So yeah. So again, bonus damages versus camels, pikemen. I think that's it. But can do very well against most units, with the exception of like eagles. Well, again, it can even do decent against eagles, but again, it's situational against eagles, cavalier, that type of stuff. Okay, next unit is a skirmisher, which is a trash unit. It's meant to be a hard counter to the archer unit, and so there are cases where it can lose to archers, but in most cases it's useful in going against archers. Again, the strength of it is against all these other archer units. It does very bad against all these other units, with the exception of pikemen. It does bonus damage versus pikemen, so it's okay. But it can still lose if the pikemen outnumber them. Yeah. Ideally, you don't want to make you don't want to say you don't want to make skirmishers, but you don't want to ever make skirmishers usually as your main unit. It's usually not the greatest as a main unit, but it can be okay in a lot of situations. One thing you should know about the skirmisher is that it has a minimum range. So I think the minimum range is 1, meaning it can't hit any units that are like right up against it. So if a melee unit gets within range of the skirmisher, it can't hit it. That's one of the main weaknesses of skirmishers, other than the fact that they have a lower attack than like archers do. So like you see here, 2 attack, 4 attack, right? So yeah, skirmishers are an anti-archer unit. They do bonus damage versus the range units, but they struggle, and they do bonus damage against pikemen, but they struggle against other cavalry units and infantry units as well. Okay, so we talked about this unit earlier, but it's the hand cannoneer. It's a gunpowder unit. Gunpowder units, they do good against infantry units because they have a bonus attack against them. I don't know exactly what the bonus attack is. It's pretty considerable. I think I can look it up really quick. I think it's like +10. Let's see. Hand cannoneer. Yeah, +10 versus infantry, +2 versus rams, and +1 versus spearmen. That's interesting. +1 versus spearmen. That must be on top of the +10. But anyways, yeah, they do quite good against infantry units because they have that bonus. They also can do quite good against cavalry, because you'll notice here that they have such a high attack damage. I mean, this is only Imperial Age unit. You can't get these in Castle Age or Feudal or Dark Age. But you see here it does 17 damage. I mean, if you get like 6 of these things, you can basically one-shot a cavalier, right? And so yeah, that's like one of the strengths of the hand cannoneers, is that if you mass them, they're basically impossible. I wouldn't say impossible, but they're very difficult to kill for melee units. The weaknesses of hand cannoneers is basically skirmishers. Skirmishers do quite good against hand cannoneers because they have a bonus attack versus hand cannoneers, and they also have additional armor. And they don't one of the big things is hand cannoneers cost quite a lot of gold. They cost 50 gold. Skirmishers don't cost any gold, so skirmishers are very gold efficient versus hand cannoneers. Another unit that's quite good against hand cannoneers is archers, and that's mainly because archers shoot faster than hand cannoneers, and they're also more accurate. Hand cannoneers are very inaccurate, and so hand cannoneers typically do good against melee units because when your unit is right next to the hand cannoneer, it's more accurate versus like if it's a ranged unit, it's not as accurate versus ranged units, and so it's harder for it to do damage. So, so yeah, hand cannoneers can do good against a lot of units. I wouldn't say there's really any unit in particular that it just does terrible against. Probably like onagers, it does pretty bad against. Well, that's not true. I'd say like skirmishers, it does pretty bad against, and I don't know. There's like a lot of units that it's all situational, depending on how, like the number of units that they have and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a solid unit. You see it in like an Imperial Age compositions, like for like a fair number of civs. Let's see here. What we got next? All right. So lastly, for the range units, we have slingers, and slingers are a mesociv, or actually it's specific to Incas, so not even mesociv. It's specific to one civ, and basically the slinger is a feudal age. You can get it in feudal age, but basically it's like a hand cannoneer in from the range. It's the hand cannoneer equivalent for mesocivs. So let me just look up the bonus damage it does. And again, I'm just using the link that I'll provide in the description to look this stuff up. So yeah. So the bonus, yeah, so it does plus 10 versus infantry, just like hand cannoneers. So yeah, it's really good against infantry in general. It's not. I think it also benefits from like the range upgrades in the blacksmith. So that's also another thing, and I believe it also benefits from ballistics. So, but you can see that it does have a relatively low attack damage, and you don't get like a upgraded version of it, so it doesn't get to be as strong as like Arbalest against non-infantry units. But against infantry units, it does quite well. So if you're Incas and you're against infantry units, then make the slinger. I think that's usually a good idea. I'm not going to go into the slinger anymore because just you don't see it enough, but there are cases where it's pretty good. All right, so that covers it. That covers pretty much all the main like the units that you're going to see in throughout most civs, with the exception of a couple units. I guess let me just cover these siege units, and then I gotta take a little break because I'm getting tired of all the talking. And then I'll cover all these unique units, there's just so many of them. Alright, so Trebuchet, it just gets bonus damage versus buildings. It also does like a crazy amount of damage. You can see it does 200 damage. So if it hits like if it actually hits one of these units, like if you fire a Trebuchet at one of the, like an actual unit, and it hits, it'll basically kill it. I think there might be an exception. It might not kill a ram or something like that, but aside from like a ram, it kills everything else in one hit. And so you can see, I'll just target this unit here. I don't know if it'll hit or not. It's kind of inaccurate. So like, you can see it's kind of inaccurate here. But if it does hit, then it will kill this unit. Anyways, but yeah, there's a lot of damage versus buildings, and that could be a while. And the nice thing about the Trebuchet is it has quite a large range. The range is 16. And so it's easy to, like, if the opponent has a hill advantage, you can use the Trebuchet to hit like a castle on that hill without going in range of the enemy's army. So that's really what Trebuchets are good for. Also, Trebuchets are good for, like, if you ever get into what's known as like a, I don't know if you'd call it like a castle war or something like that, or I don't know exactly what you'd say, but if both players had castles and within range of each other, then Trebuchets are nice to use because castle cannot hit a Trebuchet when the Trebuchet will be out of range of a castle usually, whereas like a Bombard cannon, if a Bombard cannon goes to like shoot a Trebuchet, the range of a Bombard cannon is only 12 here when it's unupgraded, and it might go within range of a castle if it's trying to shoot a Trebuchet. That's kind of like an obscure description. I think that if you guys are new, you might not understand what I'm talking about, but yeah. Anyways, I don't think I can kill this unit. I don't think friendly fire is on. But anyways, yeah, that's the Trebuchet. Next is Bombard Cannon. This is more of like a hybrid unit because it's not only used to kill buildings, but it also can kill units as well. And so basically the Bombard Cannon, it moves around. It's more mobile than a Trebuchet. Like the Trebuchet, you have to pack and unpack, right? Whereas the Bombard Cannon, you just freely move. Downside of a Bombard Cannon is less HP. But again, it can attack buildings, it can attack units, and it does quite a lot of damage still. I'd say the biggest use of the Bombard Cannon is in games where you don't really want to, like you're a civilization that doesn't necessarily need to make a castle, but has Bombard Cannons, and you can go to Imperial Age like pretty quickly and make Bombard Cannons to take down the enemy buildings. The other nice thing is Bombard Cannons do quite well against, like they have blast damage, which means if I hit like, say this crossbow here, it'll kill the archer as well. And that's really good when you're against like lots of range units that are bunched up. Like if you hit one of them, you'll also kill like several other ones. And so that's kind of nice. So like, I don't know if I can target this unit again, but oh yeah, sweet, I killed it. Like if I attack this militia here, I'll probably kill the man-at-arms as well. Oh, I didn't. But you can see it did blast damage, right? It did quite a lot of blast damage. But yeah, the weakness is it's low HP, and it doesn't have much armor. Even the Trebuchet has more armor, but you can still repair it with villagers and stuff like that. It's a relatively decent unit. I guess another disadvantage is it's pretty expensive. It costs, I think, 225 wood and 225 gold. So you don't want to lose these things if you do make them. Next unit is the Ram. This costs, I think, like 160 wood and 75 gold, I think. Let's see, go back. Yeah, 160, 75 gold. So it's a lot cheaper gold-wise. I mean, you could basically make like 3 of these things for the cost of a Bombard Cannon. They also have a lot more armor. And this is just the weakest of the Rams. You can also upgrade it to get like a Siege Ram, which is a lot stronger. Battering Rams are used to take down buildings, which is pretty self-explanatory, but another like kind of use for them is you can see that they have a really high pierce armor. It's 180. So basically every single range unit in this game only does 1 damage, because the minimum damage you can do to a unit is 1. You can't do 0. But the nice thing is that since it has such a high pierce armor, if you have a bunch of range units, or if the enemy has a bunch of range units, and you're moving in the battering ram to like attack a building or something like that, or whatever, the range units will fire at the ram, and it doesn't do any damage to the ram base. Or I mean, it only does 1 damage, so it like soaks a lot of range damage. It doesn't do very good against melee units, as you can see, it's -3 pierce armor, or -3 regular armor. But yeah, against range units, it soaks a lot of damage, so it's quite good in that sense. The other nice thing is that you can, you don't see it super often, but you can garrison units within the ram. It causes the ram to do more damage, and it also makes the ram move faster. So that's kind of nice, but yeah, I don't even know how do I garrison this? I don't even know if I can ungarrison. Ungarrison. I don't know if I have a hotkey for this. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, you can garrison units. So like if you had range units and you wanted to get like close to a castle and then prevent the enemy from killing the ram, or prevent them from repairing, you just garrison range units and then go attack. Next unit is a Scorpion. Scorpion is a unit that it basically fires like this projectile. It's a range unit, but the projectile has I don't know if it's called like pierce damage or whatever, but basically once it hits one unit, it'll go through the unit and hit units behind it. It doesn't do the same amount of damage as it does on the initial hit, but it's quite good once you have like a lot of these. Like it does quite good against range units because they have relatively low HP and they're usually bunched up. But it can also do good against melee units if you have a lot of Scorpions. Like if you have like 10, 15 Scorpions, right? Then like the pierce damage that, like if you hit the front one, if 12 Scorpions hit like one unit and then it does like the extra damage to the units behind it, then it's going to kill a lot of units. The weakness of the Scorpions is going to be that its mobility is kind of low. It also has very low HP. I mean, you see it's 40 HP. And so like if a unit like does get within range of it, it's pretty much dead. The other thing to note is that it does have a Actually, it's the same as the Bombard Cannon and the... Actually, the Bombard Cannon might have even more, but they all have minimum ranges. So let's see here. We can actually check it, I think. Oops. That doesn't say here. I don't know what the Bombard Cannon is. I feel like it's maybe more than one, but I'm pretty sure the Mangonel, Scorpion... Mangonel might be 2. But all these units have minimum ranges, so if you get within, like, the... Get close to them, then they're really easy to kill, but... Anyways, yeah, the Scorpion is weak to melee units that get in range. And it's also weak to like onagers because onagers have the same range as them, but onagers kill them in one shot. Also, bombard cannons kill them in one shot as well, so they're quite weak to that. But they do good against archers, they can do good against infantry, they can even do good against cavalry if you mass enough of them. But yeah. Lastly, for the siege units, we got mangonels, which are very good at killing like buildings. And so like yeah, the one thing Scorpion's not so great at is killing buildings. It just doesn't do a lot of damage by itself. But mangonels do a lot of damage, and they also have the range. So like if you're trying to kill an enemy town center, which is where they produce villagers, using mangonels is a good thing to do. The other benefit of using the other place where mangonels are quite good is against an enemy that has a lot of archers. If the enemy has a lot of archers, then you can use the mangonels to kill the archers because you can see they do so much damage. And like if I just show you like an attack ground here, I mean if there's archers like in that area, they're all just going to take a lot of damage, right? And so it does very well against them. Although if they do micro well, they can kill it, but it's usually kind of risky for them. So yeah, so you see mangonels quite often actually in Castle Age because they do a lot of damage versus buildings and archers. They even can do good against sometimes people make pikemen to defend against knights, and mangonels can do quite good against them as well. But yeah, one of the weaknesses I guess for like mangonels would be if like the opponent goes for a defensive castle, then the mangonels are basically useless because they can't outrange a castle, and so the castle will kill them. So they're not very good there. But anyways, I think that covers all these main buildings, and so now we're gonna get into the unique units. Unique units I'm not going to talk a whole lot about because there's just like so many of them, and yeah, I'm just going to talk in general about their attack bonuses, like what units they typically good against, and whether or not you actually see them in real games frequently. So yeah,